What if you could turn your Keycloak login from basic password only to a fully secure multi-factor authentication system in just a few minutes? Today, I will show you a simple open source library that I created that makes Keycloak MFA ridiculously easy, no complex setup, no third-party services, just drop in and done. This project extends Keycloak with full MFA support for direct grant flows, the same ones used by mobile apps, APIs, and custom login screens. By default, Keycloak does not support MFA for direct grant flow. That means your mobile or API users are stuck with just passwords. This library fixes that, giving you real MFA even in token-based or headerless environments. So it's time to get started and start to use this MFA extension and add more pull requests to this project, extend it, add more frameworks like Next.js, Flutter. Everything will be sorted and you'll be ready to go to use this extension. I will show you step by step how to set up everything from scratch until you have two-factor authentication running fully complete using an Angular application, and you can use this project for reference. Salut coders, this is Bisky. Welcome back to another YouTube tutorial. So here I have the extension for this two-factor authentication. It's called Keycloak Multi-Factor Authentication Extension, and the link is in the description. You can see it on our GitHub, and if you go to our GitHub, we have everything that you need to know, and I'm using Keycloak 2607, and I will show you how you can update this version based on your Keycloak that you are using. But I would want you to use a new Keycloak version, maybe from 26.0.7 and above. So these are the steps required to set up the two-factor authentication of our project. And you can see here, so far we have Angular. So for the deployment, to deploy the Keycloak, you can go into this deployment and you have a Docker Composer YAML, and this is the extension and the certificate. So everything is in place. What you need to do is just run the deployment Docker Compose app, and you'll be running your Keycloak. So you must make sure you have Docker installed. So here I have my Docker application installed, and I have Postgres and Keycloak, and that deployment YAML file, your data is being saved into a Postgres database. So I tested this extension in a Postgres. I tested it with Postgres database. You can try on MySQL or Oracle, but I think it will work fine. So if you find an issue maybe with the liquid base, you can just create a pull request and I can approve it. So I have the documentation here that is here to go through the application, a proper documentation and a website. So the link is keycloak-mfa.codewithbisky.com, and you go to the documentation, and this is the documentation, and I walk you through step by step how to configure this application. So if I go to home, this two-factor authentication supports OTP, whereby you can use the authenticator apps like Google Authenticator or the Microsoft Authenticator. Email, so if a user tries to log in, you can use the email. Also, you can send an email to the user and they can they get the code and they can verify and you can log in. And we also web auth on Passkeys, like creating the Passkeys using Fido 2, like Google. I'll show you everything, security keys and platform authenticators, like using Gmail authenticator for Windows low. So all those authenticators, and this will make your application more secure. The reason of creating this extension is that you can have your custom design on web using Angular, using on mobile applications, Flutter, React Native, Next.js, any of your favorite front-end framework. So this extension provides you the custom UI, not using the UI for Keycloak, which is not friendly, and sometimes you don't want people to move out from your application to log in and come back to your application after login is successful. So that's why I created this extension. Everything will start and finish in your framework. So we are starting with the Angular. So for the future, I'm going to create the Next.js project example and the Flutter. These are the most popular frameworks out there, and we are going to have also React Native. So for us to get started, make sure you go to the GitHub, and in the GitHub you clone the project. So for me, I have already cloned the project, and in my project you can see I have this. If I go to the deployment, this is the deployment YAML file, and I can run with the Docker Composer app. You know how to run this, and our application will be running on port 9443, and here I added a base URL for Keycloak, so it's going to be easy. So it's localhost port 9443/Keycloak, and it's secure, means it's HTTPS. You can see here in the URL, it's very secure. We are using HTTPS because you configure the certificates here, and these are the certificates that we pass here in the volume, and these are the certificates. So our Keycloak is secure and ready for production deployment. So let me try to run this Keycloak URL. So here the username is admin, and admin 81234. So this is our username and password, and you can get this username and password here. So you can update these details and put this your secure credentials, especially for production when you're deploying it on production. So now we have the Keycloak running. The next step is to configure this application to support two-factor authentication, to support the extension that we created, to support our library. So I want to note something. You can see here in the volumes we have the extensions, and it's being binded here into Optic Keycloak providers. So if you go to the extension, that's where you put your jar. You can, it's in this folder, that's why I say extensions, and this is where it's being binded to when in the container. So this is the jar, so the jar will be there. So it means we are now having our extension in our Keycloak. So what we need to do, let's create a new realm first, and I can call it this realm. I can call it CodeWithBisky. Right, and I can create it. So after creating this realm, we need to change we need to go to the authentication, and we have this direct grant flow. So this direct grant flow, you can see, just allow us to use the OTP, which is the authenticator app. If you go here, if you go home, by default it's only have this one, but this one and this one are the ones that I created. So for us to use these ones, we need to configure our Keycloak with the new extension that supports these two. And I also added this one also on the library so that we'll continue to support the default of Keycloak. So what we can do now, if I come here, let me go back. So we don't want to break things here. So in this direct grant, you can come here and we can duplicate it. And this one, I can call it MFA, right? A Multi-Factor Authentication Direct Grant, and I can duplicate it. So after duplicating it, I want to bind the flow, so I don't want to use the old one. So here we are choosing the binding type, which is the direct grant flow, and I can click save. So I need to delete this OTP. After deleting this OTP, I need to add another step for us, which is this one, which is Multi-Factor. You see, this is the library that I created for multi-factor authentication direct grant. So it is under CodeWithBisky.com. So I can click this and I say add. So by default it is disabled. So what I need to do is to make it required, right? So now it's fine. So we need to configure it. So to configure this library, we can click these settings, and here you can just say MFA direct grant, anything that you want here, max age, it's okay. The code that is going to be generated for email, it's going to be 60 digits, and the time to leave, I think this one are seconds, 300 seconds, and you can enable two-factor authentication, email two-factor authentication for all users in this room, for every user. If you want to enable emails for every user that is going to log in, means every user wants to log in on the platform, they must validate with the email. So I can click save, right? So I disabled for email. So once we are done with this, we created a room code with Bisky. So let's go to our Angular project. If you go to our Angular project, and we can go to source, app, service, auth service, and here the room, it's CodeWithBisky. I can select, that's the room that we created. But you know, with Keycloak, when you are logging in, you need to put things like client secret and client ID. So here I have the client ID, which is authenticator authentication client ID. So I can copy this one and I can go to the clients. Then I can say create client, and the name of the client is this one, and I can click next, and save. So I'm not creating the client secret, and this is a public, so don't worry about security, just a public. The user, the admin side is going to manage this in terms of roles, but for now everything's public, but it's secure. So what we need to do next, let's create a user that we can use to test our login. So the user, I can say Bisky@yopmail and Bisky@yopmail, right? And I can create this user. After creating user, let me add the password. Go to credential, set password, and the name of my password, test81234. test81234. Raise temporarily off. Then I can click save password. So we are now have the user, and here let me mark this email is verified. Yeah. So we are now have our user Bisky@yopmail, but and if you go to this user credentials, only have the password. So it means this user can only log in with password. So far this user cannot log in. We don't have multi-factor authentication enabled here. Let's test the login of this user. So let's go back to this application, and in this Angular project, this one already set up, and the client ID already created it. So let's go to the package JSON, right? And let's run the application here. So our application is now running on port 4200. So let me open here. Let me put this one and the password, right? And I can click login. So you can see this user is logged in the application. And if you go to, let's go to the, maybe if you want to see if we have any sessions here, you see the new session which was created means this user is logged in with the authentication client ID. Means everything is fine, everything is configured correctly. So what did I mean last time about email second factor authentication? Because this user is just logging direct, but let's say you want every user to log in with email. That's why we have this configuration. We go to authentication and MFA direct grant, and we go to settings, and if I enable this, and try to log in here with the Bisky. You can see it now requires the user to put the verification of email. So if I click this, and a 6-digit code has been sent here, but here I didn't configure the email, so I will not get the email because I didn't configure the SMTPs for emails on the Keycloak. So for you to have this working in your Keycloak, you need to come to Realm settings and go to email, and you put your details here for email, the host, everything, and make sure everything work fine, right? So for me, I didn't configure it, so the email functionality won't work. So what I need to do is to come to the authentication flow, and I can go to MFA direct, and I want to disable the email so that I not force everyone. So let me reload this, and I go to Bisky, and the password test 81234, and here I can log in. So now we have a user is logged in back again after we disabled email. So what we need to do, we need to set up the passkeys, the one that is important, so that you can do whatever you want with your Angular. So that's the power for this extension. So here you click create passkey, and I can say register. So what I can do in the inspect, let's just monitor if everything is going to work fine, and I can say register passkeys, right? And I can save here with the platform like Google, or I can choose a cloud chain. So maybe you're familiar with this one, and I can click continue. So you can see the finish was success, means it was registered successfully. So if I do this, and let me click log out. So for Bisky at Yokmail and test 81234, if I log in here, you can see there's now web auth on, means it's the passkey. So you can't log in without putting the proper passkeys here. So we have added another layer of security of the application. No hacker can hack this application. No one can get into your application. You can design this the way you want. This is just a template that I gave you. You can make this thing more beautiful. So if I click web auth on, right, and I click continue, you can see it discovered that, okay, this Bisky email is registered to this domain localhost. So if I click continue, the user is logged in. So if we go to Keycloak for that user, let's go to that user. Let's see what is in the credentials. If you go to the Keycloak, you can see there is a new credential called custom auth. So this custom auth is the one that has the details for the two-factor authentication for passkeys. So that's why we are able to log in. That's why we say your application is now secure and no one can get into your application. So what if we want to add also an OTP authentication, and we want to use the Google Authenticator app or Apple Authenticator app? So what I can do, I can use in Microsoft Authenticator app. So we can say set up authentication, and if we do this, a request has been sent to our second factor authentication library, and a code is being generated. So what I can do is to scan this one with a phone. After scanning this one, I just say here, if I scroll down, a 6-digit code is needed here. So the code that I want to put is this one, 348882, and I can complete the setup. So you can see it is completed. If you go to Keycloak and if I refresh this page, You can see an OTP is added also in the device as iOS, and everything is fine. So let's see what's going to happen here again, and let me log out our user and sign out, and let's see how many authenticators are going to be visible. And here test at 1, 2, 3, 4. We're expecting to see 2. So we have web authon and we have OTP. If I choose OTP and I just put any random number here of OTP, the application won't log you in. So you can see here I did not handle correctly the details. So here I can say let's put the correct OTP that is being shown here. So it's 193.193.766, and I can click continue. So after entering the correct OTP, it's now logged in. So we have configured all these two, the passkeys and the OTP. So means your application is now secure and no one will just get into your application. You can share the password with someone, but if you are using like passkeys, someone has to store also your computer and knows everything like your device, because I used my computer needs to be able to log in, so that you'll be able to log in with this to log in on your application. If you are using a phone, means someone needs to store your phone for that person to be able to access your Google Authenticator. So this means we are more secure. So let's meet on another video tutorial where we are going to explore more on this security, and we are going to enhance more frameworks, add more frameworks like in Next.js and Flutter on this application, and you are free to create pull requests to add more features on this multi-factor authentication library. Let's meet on another video tutorial. Salut coders.